And okay. All right. So pretty straightforward. First question. What exactly is your position? I noticed that you work for the city of San Jose. So basically, what do you do? What's your position at the moment?
So right now I'm a division manager in Public Works Development Services,
Hmm.
and what our division essentially oversees is private development that relates to private development projects essentially. So it could range from like a strip mall. It could range from high rises. It could even range from a small two-lot subdivision of a single-family home or even ADU. So I oversee a group of about, depending on the vacancies, generally between 40 to 50 people.
Hmm.
Uh, and we have a number of groups. One is a planning and implementation side, which oversees, again, private development projects that goes from planning all the way to in planning, which is their entitlement process, all the way up until implementation, which is the construction.
Hmm.
So during the planning side of things, that's when the site gets evaluated and conditioned for based on what they're proposing and the regulations of that type of land use.
Hmm.
And what we oversee in particular is all the public infrastructure
Hmm.
and also the on-site grading and drainage and stormwater.
Okay.
So obviously, with any other type of developments that come within the city, there needs to be sufficient infrastructure to support their project.
Hmm.
But so when I say public infrastructure, we're talking about streets, we're talking about curb gutter sidewalks, we're talking about street lighting, we're talking about sanitary sewer, storm lines, and the impacts that that project has to the surrounding area needs to be addressed.
Hmm.
So there's also during the entitlement process, you're reviewing the traffic reports and ensuring that whatever recommendations come out of those traffic reports and environmental documents gets conditioned as part of the project.
Yeah.
So then when once they get their planning entitlements or planning permits, then you go to the implementation and construction. So that's when we oversee the technical review of that of all the public infrastructure that's going to be built. We're
Hmm.
going to also see the site grading and drainage, and ensure that it meets the city's requirements or regulation. We also see the stormwater, how the stormwater is going to be treated prior to discharge into the city storm system and ultimately ends up in the bay. And we make sure that it meets with meets the state requirements. If there's a subdivision associated with it, then we're also reviewing the maps in accordance with our Muni Code and also the Subdivision Map Act. We also have a flood team too that reviews the flood requirements, because obviously you don't want to, when you're building within areas within a flood zone, depending on which zone it's located in, you want to make sure that it doesn't impact adjacent properties or impact the floodway or the watershed in general.
Hmm.
So so there are certain requirements. If they're located in a flood zone, there are certain requirements that needs to be implemented to ensure that also the property doesn't get damaged during a flood, and it meets the FEMA requirements, the Federal Emergency Management Agency who oversees the issues related to flood.
Hmm.
We also have a utilities group, which whenever there are utilities associated with development, the utility companies also deal with our utilities group, who oversees like water lines within the public right of way, and we're also telecommunication line that's installed within the right of way. So all of that kind of needs to be balanced in terms of the use of the right of way, because there's so many, as you can imagine, there's so many facilities within the right of way. So we also oversee the installation of those facilities within the right of way. And then we also have another group that deals with just mainly traffic. So traffic, we have a traffic team that again evaluates what traffic impacts would have within the right of way. What are the deficiencies in the surrounding area? So that could be you know, there's lacking some pedestrian access. It could lack bikes. So what we're, as a city as a whole, we're trying to encourage different modes of transportation. A long time ago, not too long ago, at least over a decade, the main focus was all about cars.
Mhm.
But there, as you continue to focus more on about cars, the previous thinking was that you widen roads, but there's only so much you can do in terms of you build wider roads, then there's eventually going to be more cars, and it's just not sustainable.
Mhm.
So you build you build you know, the right, you build improvements within the right of way that help facilitate all modes of transportation, whether it be bike, whether it be walking, whether it be public transit. All that needs to be balanced. So we've become less focused on vehicular uses and more focused on, again, a more balanced approach of different types of transportation modes.
Okay.
So I don't know if that gives you a kind of a flavor of what we do.
Well, definitely, definitely. So as far as your task, basically, you're the guy that oversees all the planning, all the development, and all that stuff, right?
So we are involved in the planning process. We do have a planning department, which is the director is Chris Burton. They oversee all the planning entitlements. Again, what they see is generally on site. And also the city as a whole has to how as in terms of the typical land uses throughout the city. And so while public infrastructure is certainly critical, we are part of that planning process. So
Yeah.
planning department would be essentially be the lead during the entitlement process, but they also coordinate with both us, public works again, and there's fire also, because fire it's also another important piece of it. So then there's also a number of various departments. So generally through the entitlement process, there are a number of varied interests throughout the entitlement process, and generally planning is a lead on that.
Wow. Well, I really did. Wow. Okay. All right. So taking it all the way back to before you began your career and everything, where did you attend college, and was civil engineering always your career path, or did you have any other routes in mind?
Civil engineering was not my original career path. Well, I think when I was young, I wanted to become an aerospace engineer
Mm.
because I love planes, and but I realized that careers in aerospace is fairly limited. But I was also interested in generally how things work, right?
Mhm.
So you know, how buildings are built, to why a road or a bridge is designed a certain way, how things come together. Civil engineering has always been what I was always passionate about, what I was always curious about, and so it was natural for me to head that you know, go in that path. My dad was also a civil engineer
Oh, okay.
and kind of inspired me into this path. It's I've always been interested in construction. I've always been interested in I've also like architecture, but I'm not creative enough to be an architect. But I do love the whole building and design process.
Mhm.
You know, where the ones architects make things pretty, where engineers are the ones that make things work, right? And design it, and to make sure that it all works well and is safe.
Oh, okay.
So yes, civil engineering I would say, has always been probably a passion of mine.
Mhm. Yeah, I was actually in a similar situation, to be honest. Civil engineering wasn't my first major either. I actually wanted to do mechanical engineering first because I grew up wanting to work on cars, engine parts, all that stuff. And SJSU has a racing team as well, where they build a little race car, and as part of the
Yeah,
mechanical engineering team. But an uncle of mine, he works with civil engineers, and he gave me an insight of how it is and stuff. And I was always more a little bit into. I looked at more into the construction side of stuff, and honestly, it brought more attention to me. And I saw more career opportunities going that route, especially in San Jose. So that's the route I choose to take. And honestly, I'm liking it better. So
Yeah, if you like, even potentially even developing property in the future, a
yeah,
lot of, if you notice, like a lot of the big developers in the world, or biggest, I guess, richest people in the world, a lot of them are property owners and developers. That's where the money is too. If you
exactly.
and it's, having a civil engineering background is certainly very helpful and useful, because whereas I think I like you, I love working on cars. I love racing when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I still work on my cars today, and my other interest was also architecture again. But I came to quickly find out how much architects make, and I'm like, no, that's not a path I want to go down. And again, I'm not that creative in that sense. So civil engineering was certainly a natural path, and I certainly glad I selected this career.
Okay.
So you have to be passionate. You have to really love civil engineering. It's not for everybody, because
Yeah.
you don't always do it for the money, but really about, you do it for the love of it, for the passion. So,
Okay.
I mean, it could be lucrative depending on which path you go down. But so that's something to consider you know as you mature in your career.
Nice. That's really true. All right. Well, being an engineering student, typically it takes a lot more commitment and study time than other majors. It could drain you from energy from your friends and family. You can't really talk to them as much. So, how do you think an engineering student could balance their education with like their work, their family, social life, etc.?
Uh, how to balance that? I don't, I don't, I don't know. I guess that's really a personal choice, because I think I find myself having a hard time finding a work-life balance sometimes, because when you love what you do, it doesn't necessarily always feel like work, right? So it's almost like working on your car, and time just goes by fast. You don't do it for the money. Obviously, you do it for the passion.
Enjoyment, yeah.
And time, I guess finding that work-life balance is really a personal choice as to where you want to focus. And I do find it hard for me to step away sometimes as you move up in the civil engineering field, especially even in private. It's I mean you're gonna and depending on which field you work in, because if you're, say, for structural, a
Mhm.
lot of structural engineers work through the weekend, and they work long hours for very little money. And uh, but it could be like that with any career that you're passionate about and you want to do well in.
Oh, yeah.
um, I mean, they always say you got to put in your 10,000 hours to become proficient at something. So it just depends on how proficient you want to be in a short period of time, or if you want to stretch that out. But it does require commitment, and your success really, I always believe your success really depends on how hard you work at something. So
Exactly.
I think that's really important. I mean, again, just depends on your priorities in life,
Mhm.
right? So some people can afford more time than others. So
Yeah.
if you look at Elon Musk, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he spends day and night in his factories, make ensuring success.
Mhm. Yeah, but he loves what he's doing, so
Yeah,
it's worth it.
yeah, yeah. So you have to. So in civil engineering, I mean, I've seen civil engineers where they have a different mindset, where civil engineering is just a job to them.
Mhm.
If it's just a job to them, it's hard for them to really thrive in this career. But if this is something you're passionate about, in terms of construction, in terms of just the whole process, the business side of things, and negotiating, and the intense pace of development,
Yeah.
and you have to love that kind of environment in order to thrive in it.
Mhm.
If you're not passionate about it, then I would say that, or if you can't find your passion in it, I would say that civil engineering may not be for that type of individual. But I still see people in those positions that are in civil engineering that are not passionate about it, and it's just a job to them, but they don't necessarily thrive.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe one of my questions actually was if you enjoy if you enjoy your job, or are you just there, like you said, like just for the money, basically. But as I can see, you're definitely passionate about your job and everything that you've done. So that's a really good thing to say from you.
Yeah, I mean, if and I would encourage, people that are like, yeah, that are just starting in civil engineering to not be discouraged once they get out of college and they find that this is all there is in terms of civil engineering, like the type of work that they do when they first start out. There's a lot of grunt work, right? In the beginning when you're an entry level engineer,
Mhm.
and it may seem as though it's a waste of time sometimes, but it's also important to build that foundation, and in terms of your knowledge. Even the simple tasks may seem meaningless at first, but it certainly builds you as a person, builds your knowledge. I remember even my dad talking about when he was a young engineer. He spent the first. This was a long time ago, so it's not like this anymore. But
Mhm.
he spent a long time ago. He spent a long time early in his career, maybe the first 1 or 2 years of his career, just doing blueprints. And
Okay.
blueprints at the time is just essentially like a photocopy of a plan,
Mhm.
right? He's just and he graduated from college. He was questioning himself: is this all there is to civil engineering? Doing this kind of grunt work, and I mean, it doesn't seem like civil engineering. But
Mhm.
through just handling plans, looking at plans, doing research. Even when I was a young engineer, is doing research. You're learning how to develop that skill into doing research, working independently,
Mhm.
no matter what it is, whether you're a dishwasher or whether or not you're doing blueprints. Be the best you can, be passionate about it, and people will notice. And people love managers love seeing people that no matter what task is assigned to them, that they do their best. And
Exactly.
those are the people that managers notice, and those they quickly move up. So again, even when I first started, I didn't really understand what my dad really meant when I first started my civil engineering career. I thought I was, like a hot shot. I got my civil engineering degree. I mean, I should be doing design work right now. I should be making the calls. I should be the hot shot making the calls. But
Mhm.
it's really learning the basics of not only just work ethic, but also really being able to know how to do the simple stuff like the research, something as basic as research, and the determination and knowing where to look for stuff, knowing how to talk to people, to network with people, to in order to find the information you need.
Mhm.
It's really important in developing yourself as an engineer. It may not A lot of the stuff may not be engineering, but it's important towards who you are as a person in your career.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely being more passionate about what you do will definitely take you a lot farther away than those that are just doing it for money and such. So that's a really good thing. All right. Before we started, you were telling me about internships that I should probably start looking for one. I'm in my third year, and even I know my goal right now is to find an internship by summer or by next semester. Um, I was trying to find one actually by this semester, but I had to come back home because all my classes were online. So another disadvantage there. So recently I began a part-time job here in my town just to earn a couple bucks. But basically, what was your first internship like? Do you remember what it was? What were your tasks?
Yeah, I was working at internship at Valley Water, or formerly known as the Santa Clara Valley Water District.
Mm,
I worked as an internship. I worked as an intern, in the survey group, and which was at the time I thought was very boring, but I certainly fall back on learning how to read survey points, learning how to be hands-on in terms of going out in the field and doing surveying work, and learning the instrumentation. And so again, it goes back to even though you may think it's boring at first, eventually when you get to a certain level where you're really passionate about it or really enjoy it, you rely on that. You rely on that knowledge.
mm,
And I do remember there are days where I'm thinking to myself, wow, this work is really boring. I'm just entering data GIS data in terms of these survey points that on information that was collected out in the field.
Mhm.
But again, it goes to understanding the basics, and that's not something that you always can get from school and in the books. It's actually going out in the field and actually doing the survey, and it really gives you a better knowledge as to how things get done, and again makes you a better, well-rounded engineer. There's going to be a lot of negotiating in whatever career you go into, and there's negotiations and figuring out solutions, thinking outside the box, and all those little things add up to your experience in order to make a well-informed decision.
Mhm.
And some people don't necessarily have that background and don't necessarily know how to, think of creative solutions because they don't have that experience, whatever that may be.
Mhm.
So think of all these little quote unquote grunt work as experience in your life, and which you can utilize in your future career.
Mhm. Of course. All right. After you graduated, how long did it take you to get to the position you are right now? So, was it difficult climbing up that ladder after, after your internship, after such and all? So, how long did that take you?
To this division manager position, it took me probably about maybe 50, let's see, I would say all in all, close to 20 years actually. I did not have that drive that most people did, was to become a division manager. At the most, I wanted to become a senior level engineer, just a senior engineer. And I wouldn't say just a senior engineer because, I really enjoyed my time as a senior engineer. So for a while, I was challenged and somewhat comfortable in an associate engineer level. And I thought I would retire as an associate engineer and maybe a senior level engineer. Because when growing up, associate engineers was, they already have a lot of responsibility as it is. But this opportunity came up at the city so I was an associate engineer for about 14 and a half years. And then then a senior engineering position came up at my friend's. My friend at the time was the division manager at the city of San Jose, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come in and apply?" And I said, "Oh, okay. I mean, it's senior is probably as most as I want to get, because when you get to the division manager level, you're not only managing more you're just essentially just managing people rather than projects and people. As senior engineer at the city, you manage both projects and people."
Mhm.
And when I came to the city, I really enjoyed being a senior engineer. And even though I had to manage more people than an associate engineer, you're doing, as a senior engineer, you definitely at a level where you're really mentoring more people.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed mentoring the younger engineers, helping them problem solve and develop the talent.
Mhm.
But at senior engineer level at the city, I was only managing maybe 12, 13 people, right? So I said, okay, that's as much as I want to manage. I just want to retire at this level. But there came an opportunity where my friend left the city, and I did not want to step up that position, but I was kind of pushed towards that direction, which I'm glad I eventually took, to become a division manager, because you certainly can affect change more readily. You can implement your vision for how you want things done, and it's certainly people manage. As you get higher up the ranks, you're actually managing projects less, but you're managing people more. It's like any other organization, whether it's private or public. When you get to a certain level, you're really people management and client management, right? So I deal with the public a lot. I deal with council members a lot, and so it's again, you're putting people in place to manage projects,
Mhm.
So I'm hiring the senior engineers and involved in the associate and entry level engineers. But again, as you move up the ranks, you're working on projects less in any type of environment that you're in. So it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
depends on what your career goals are. My career goals has never been to become a division manager, but I was kind of pushed in that direction. And in a sense, it's good. One of the mentor always told me, if you're comfortable, that means you're not growing. So when I became a division manager, it's uncomfortable for me, but that means I'm growing because
Yeah.
you're forced to grow. There's going to be times in your life where you're going to feel like you're you feel like you're uncomfortable as it is, but if you can challenge yourself even more, I
Mhm.
mean, it's better for your personal growth. So there may be times I have had engineers where they for the first year just transitioning from a CE1-2 to an associate engineer is very stressful. Um, but I tell them the same thing. I mean, if you're being pushed and if you're feeling uncomfortable, I think of it as a growing experience.
Mhm.
I go to the gym a lot, and I tell people it's not unlike going to the gym. You have to go through struggles in order to grow. It's like
Exactly.
anything else in life. Even as a person, you go through a lot of struggles in life. You can either take it and let it weigh you down, or you can take that experience and grow from it.
Mhm.
So it's like your career. You have to exercise in order to and challenge yourself in order to grow as an
Mhm.
engineer, as a person.
It's just as they say, I mean, no pain, no gain, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. Pain is not. Yeah, you have to change your perspective when it comes to pain and hard
yeah.
work. If you have a perspective that you're going to grow from it, then you're all better for it. Because if you're going to have to go through it anyways, not that you don't. In career you don't have to move the ranks if you don't want to, but if that is your desire and you want to grow as a person, as an individual, you
Mhm.
have to embrace the pain. You have to embrace the struggle,
Mhm.
and and grow and learn from it.
Exactly. All right. Well, you said you were an associate engineer for about 15 plus years. Were you always an associate engineer for the city of San Jose, or were there other companies before that?
No, I was at Valley Water
Anyway.
for 14 and a half years.
Mhm.
So it's not quite 15. So yeah, I was at Valley Water for quite some time, and even though it was again I was at the time I thought I was still being challenged, but I
Mhm.
didn't realize I could be even more challenged when I came to the city.
Oh yeah.
Um, so sometimes even when you think you're still growing, you may not be as growing as much as you should be. So
Mhm.
I would always encourage you to continue to push yourself. I do see a lot of people who have rise through the ranks because they continually challenge themselves and
Mhm.
they're bold about it, right? The biggest thing that can hold you back in life is fear. But if you're bold, even if you don't think you can do it, but if you're bold, those are
Mhm.
the people that will progress and can again move up the ranks pretty
Yeah.
quickly. What
Yeah.
in any organization, whether it be private or public.
Oh yeah.
So don't let fear hold you back.
All right. Well, I'm sure that you're one of the many people that was impacted by the pandemic these past 2 years and such. So, and you were probably working from home, I'm assuming. So was it difficult to transition into that setting throughout the pandemic?
Uh, I guess anytime there's change, it could always be challenging because we weren't necessarily set up for that. Our organization wasn't necessarily set up for it.
Mhm.
But in a way, it was good because it kind of spurred us uh, to be able to work more remotely
Mhm.
in terms of technology. Usually things kind of fall by the wayside in terms of electronic submittals or remote submittals, and that so a lot of times it's easier for the public to come in and submit their plans or documents by just coming in and driving in because there's not really any way for people to submit electronically.
Mhm.
This pandemic kind of forced people to, or forced the city to develop a system that's more friendly towards people who want to submit documents remotely.
Yeah.
So it kind of, even though we were on our way to doing that, it kind of forced that change much quicker. and so it was a nice way to kind of, again, spur change. Sometimes, we had staff that's challenged by change and working from home. I don't have this, I don't have that. So
Mhm.
as a manager, you just have to work to address those staff needs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, even in school, for us, it was really weird just transitioning to online school and everything. But in a way, like you said, it was already due. For many now, it's a lot easier to just work online, submit our assignments and such. So I feel like it did a lot of us good in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're not missing too much on the college experience by
Oh yeah.
going.
So that yeah that can a lot of students do miss being on campus and stuff, but it's just we're just used to it now, so it's no problem. All right. Do you see yourself in your position for the rest of your life, or do you have any other plans to move on to something else in the near future?
Uh, I haven't. Well, I think where I'm at now will continue to challenge me for quite some time.
Mm,
When you, because I do find myself certainly working more, and it's not just a 9 to 5 type of job. Some people may think so, but again, I take a lot of pride in my work, and I want to make sure that as a division manager, I do my job well. So that
mm,
requires long days. Um, when you get up to executives above me, it could be even longer days. It requires is you're more removed from staff, which I do like,
mhm,
uh, but not that I no that came out wrong. Is you're removed from staff, which I don't like. I do like being more engaged with my staff, but when you're at a deputy level, it's just you're dealing more with the politics.
mm,
To a certain extent, I still have to deal with the politics of development, but you're even more so at a executive manager level. So as far as I can see now, in terms of the near future, I do plan on staying at a division manager level.
mm,
Um, it's more than I ever wanted to achieve. Again, being that I do like dabbling in projects and having a smaller group to manage,
mm.
but it just depends on what you enjoy in life. Do you like managing people, or do you like and some people do. Some people like uh, um, that kind of work. So it just
Yeah.
so as far yeah, to answer your question, I do see myself staying at this level, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Well, how much time do you spend like visualizing the field in person, so being out in the field, looking at projects and such? Because typically I prefer to be outside, just walking around, taking a look at plans and everything, rather than sitting on a computer all day in the desk and everything. So um how much time throughout your week do you spend outside looking at your projects and stuff?
Those I can say are far and few between, and at least at a division manager level. Division manager level is usually you're in a lot of meetings,
Hmm.
um, but I would say I would certainly encourage younger engineers, project engineers, to really go out in the field and get to know the site. Walking the site cannot replace um, what you're reviewing on the plan sets or on the computer screen.
Hmm.
I think when I was a younger engineer, we used to actually go out in the field on all our projects, but nowadays it's with Google Earth, and the lack of staffing resources it can be a challenge. I have to admit that. So our younger engineers these days are less likely to go out in the field. As a division manager level, and usually at senior level, we rarely go out in the field unless we're addressing some high profile issue.
Hmm.
Um, so, but as a younger engineer, I would certainly encourage it. But I can't. But I must say that not all companies or organizations can afford their engineers to go out in the field as that often. Um, but for personal growth, it's certainly good that you do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so you said being a division manager is typically more on the managing people side of all this. So do you typically work at a comfortable pace, or is there times where you feel rushed or where your environment is just a bit hectic for you to handle?
I think if you go in the private side, and I mean, we move as fast as development. We have to move as fast as development.
Mhm.
Developers have millions of dollars on the line. Even smaller developers have tens of thousands or hundreds of $1,000s online. So depending on what project we work with, and development never sleeps. So we do move at a very intense pace because we move as fast as private developers.
Mhm.
And again, private developers have millions of dollars in investments and loans that they're paying interest on,
Mhm.
and we need to be cognizant of it. We are also interested in ensuring that these projects are successful, because a robust development means a better economy for us all, right? So we try to drive the project. In the old days, when I say old days, I'm talking about like the 90s and early 2000. You know, there's to a certain extent, the city was more of a regulator rather than a driver of projects. We understand that private development projects are vital to our economy. So we, at least in public works and planning, tries to a certain extent. I would say they lack a lot of staffing and they have a high turnover rate, so it's been challenging for them. But we do try to have the mindset of driving projects and meeting their schedules. So development is probably one of the most intense environments, because again, time is money. So I would not say that it's ever an easy pace. But again, that's what it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to love the intensity.
Exactly.
There's also parts of civil engineering where you're dealing with like capital projects, like or even at Valley Water, where you're dealing with capital projects and flood control projects. Those projects can last decades, from environmental, and those areas of civil engineering are much slower. And again, if it's just a job to some people, though that might be the type of pace that they like.
Mhm.
But to me, it's a little too slow. I like development projects. I love the intensity. I love the negotiating. I love having to figure out solutions with developers to get their projects shovel ready.
Mhm.
So again, just depends on which area you go into. But I've done capital projects before when I was a young engineer, and it was a pace that was a little too slow for me.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Okay. So this question kind of connects with the previous one that I asked you about transitioning to online because of the pandemic and such. Um, but it's about communication. So in engineering, communication is a major key because of meetings, presentations, and so on. So at first, I'm sure it was very difficult to transition to that communication setting, online and all this stuff. But compared to now, what's communication like in your environment as it goes?
A lot of it's like this, Zoom, right?
Mhm.
But nowadays, it's a lot of Zoom meetings. Prior to the sheltered in place, prior to the hybrid work environment, um, communication was a lot of it was in person,
Mhm.
uh, or phone calls or emails. Now we're relying mostly on Zoom and emails, which to me, I think we're certainly more accessible, and because you're not having to walk to the conference room, you're not having to reserve a room, you're not having to find a time where everybody can travel to a specific location.
Mhm.
So I find it much easier, and we are able to communicate at much more effectively when we're meeting via Zoom. When I say effective, I mean I mean meaning that uh, we're more readily available to the development community. of course, you're always going to miss some of that in-person elements. But I think for the most part, our engagement with the community is much stronger
Mhm.
because we're more accessible.
Oh yeah, it's a lot easier. So,
Yeah.
all right. Throughout your education back in college and such, did you ever have any communication issues like with presentations and all that? I ask this because even nowadays I have struggles at times with anxiety and stuff when I'm about to give a presentation, which is normal, but what advice would you give to someone to overcome this issue? And how did you overcome this issue if you dealt with this before?
I don't know that. Well, one of the things I would certainly encourage for any young engineer is to make because one of the biggest things in terms of if you're wanting to really grow in your career
Mhm.
is to really work on public speaking, work on communication, work on being able to articulate yourself. And what goes hand in hand is also your writing ability. If you're looking to move up quickly, those are really key factors in order to really move up as a manager. I was, and that's one of the reasons why I try to really encourage my kids to read more, to write more. And I didn't do a lot of that when I was young. So I certainly struggled when I first entered the career.
Yeah.
And all I can say is, you can, the more you practice at it in terms of communication, public speaking, the better you will be. And it's better to fail now when you're young than when you get to my age, when it's much harder to fail in front of what people expect from you. At division manager level or at a senior level, you should have some sort of ability to speak publicly. And so I would encourage you to continue to challenge yourself. I know it's like scary,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of, everybody goes through it. But the only way to get through it is to do more of it. And that's what I mean by boldness, being bold and really challenge yourself. Because again, the only thing that will hold you back from developing that skill is fear.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling fear and anxiety and you still do it, that's the only way you're going to grow. So there are also there are also clubs out there like Toastmasters that I would encourage people to join, where you can practice in a safe environment your public speaking ability. So I don't know if San Jose State has the Toastmasters group or there's a local Toastmasters group, but I would certainly encourage you to do that. Again, I mean, technical knowledge is one thing. We have a lot of people that have good technical knowledge, but if you can't speak or write well, you're really going to have a challenging time moving up in your career.
Oh yeah.
So it's important to be, so that's probably one of the biggest takeaways in your career is to develop those skill sets. It actually translates to not just civil engineering, but in a lot of careers. A lot of times in your career, whether it be civil engineering or another career, you have to be able to sell your ideas. You have to be able to explain to people why you're making a certain decision. So if you're strong in that area, you'll be really successful. So not so much so that when I say you're trying to sell your ideas as you're going to come into the meeting and bulldoze everybody, but really be tactful about it and learning how to collaborate and listen.
Yeah.
Those are all important as part of being a great manager.
Oh yeah. Well,
I must say that I'm not. I'm not. My public speaking skills aren't that strong. But looking back at some of my shortcomings, I would say that you being young is that now the time to really focus on in those areas. Again, be bold. Don't be fearful. You're going to be fearful, but just be bold.
Yeah, it's all about the struggles that we're just talking about. So they grow as time goes by. So, when being interviewed to become a professional engineer, for example, what are some important skills? It could be general skills that employers were going to look for you. So, I mean, one of the skills we're just talking about is communication skills. So, everyone definitely needs to have good communication skills. But besides that, what are some other general skills that everyone needs to have that everyone's going to be looking for you in an interview?
So it goes back to, like, when I say communication, it's not just communication, but be able to really sell yourself, right? So again, it's really be able to tell them why you are important for that, or why they should hire you, right? So it's you have to really be able to articulate that point and give specific examples. What they're also looking for is your critical thinking skills, how you would solve a problem. So you'll always get questions like, how'd you get along with people? How do you get along with difficult people? They're gonna ask you, if a project schedule is falling behind, how you resolve it. So what they want to see from you is how you're able to proactively find a solution.
Mhm.
And so, I have engineers that come in who come in the interview, and they don't have that uh, I guess that, well, at least they aren't able to articulate how they are able to proactively solve situations. What
Mhm.
the people want to see is that you're not only proactive but also solutions oriented, right?
Yeah, right.
So um, yeah, you just have to be able to sell that idea, articulate again, or really be able to articulate the traits that you bring to the table
Mhm.
as a young engineer. And because again, I think again a lot of people have technical knowledge, right?
Mhm.
But actually the amount of people that are able to articulate how they're problem solvers, how they're proactive, how they're able to uh, really articulate themselves, it's harder to find than you think.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, so as I said before, my goal is to apply for an internship by summer or if not next semester. And and so currently I don't have much notable experience on my resume that would be like helpful, I guess. But if I wanted to apply for an internship, how could I convince a company for say to bring me in but with little to no experience in the engineering field?
Have you, out of curiosity, have you applied? Have you applied for internships?
Not yet.
Yeah, because I feel like especially nowadays it's there's a labor shortage,
Mm,
including, I mean, we have a hard time finding, even at the city we have a hard time finding interns.
mm,
Um, so I would certainly encourage you to reach out and be aggressive,
mm.
because they're hiring everywhere right now. But again, it's even without experience, you have to be able to sell yourself.
Yeah.
As again, because I don't necessarily, because we're in this labor shortage. I'm not so concerned about people's skill sets in terms of the technical knowledge, because technical knowledge you can be trained,
Mhm.
that can be trained, but in terms of them being their fit, how they fit in with our group, and their work ethics is more important to me.
Mhm.
So if I know someone's able to articulate themselves, if they're bold, if they're really able to really sell themselves, in a, to me, then it goes a long way. So I don't know if that's why I'd asked you whether or not you've actually applied, because again, a lot of people right now are looking for
Mhm.
uh, interns, or even and entry level positions. So I mean, I had to really reach out to a number of people to see if they know other people that are interested in interning with the city. But I would certainly, but as a young engineer, I would certainly encourage you to intern with a private company first,
Mhm.
because with the city's labor shortage right now, a lot of the work is grunt work, and unfortunately, where we utilize interns in a way that not necessarily helps develop their interest in civil engineering, although we are trying to change that in our division to really utilize them to give them a flavor of what civil engineering is about, rather than just use them for just fill in the labor gaps of administrative work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you haven't applied to private development companies, I would certainly encourage you to do that. And again, being bold, it goes a long ways.
Oh yeah, as I said, that's the plan so far. I mean, I recently just got this part-time job, as I said, just to earn a couple of bucks, but I definitely am still looking on LinkedIn and such for companies in San Jose or nearby as well. So hopefully I have an
Yeah,
opportunity soon.
yeah. Look at some of them larger civil engineering firms, or that's local to San Jose. It's HMH.
Mm.
HMH would be a good one. So, and again, depends on which area civil engineering you want to go into. It could be more environmental. If you go environmental, then you look for engineering firms that focus in that area. Or if it's structural, you look for like Biggs and Cardoza or any. So it just depends on which area you're interested in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while you were in college, were you part of any particular clubs or organizations where say that they helped you with more connections and knowledge for your future career where you are right now?
Um, I would say ASCE would probably be the best club that you can attend, the student chapter, because again, it's really important in terms of networking, because the civil engineering community is fairly small. People, there's several degrees of separation. Someone knows somebody that, and they're looking to hire, they will keep you in mind, or so we deal with a lot of the same people throughout the years. So I would say joining ASCE and being involved in ASCE will go a long ways in terms of networking within the civil engineering field.
Oh yeah. Um, were there any memorable projects that you took part of while you were in college? Because in my freshman year, my most memorable ones have to be from my engineering class. We built a little Vex robot and we programmed it to reach one destination and bring it back to say a little line. It was between, where was it? I don't know how to describe it, my bad. But basically it went to one destination, it came back, and I had to detect the second destination and go to that one after that. And
Oh,
then
nice.
the second one, we built a wind turbine and had to test its durability against a little leaf, that wasn't a leaf blower, but a fan, a really big fan, and just see how much it held up. So I really like those projects. So were there any that you particularly remember?
Yeah, there was a couple. I mean, one was designing a water treatment plant and doing the whole environment, going through the whole environmental process, learning and understanding each of the processes of the water treatment plant. It was quite a fascinating project. We worked because it's such a large task to design a water treatment plant.
Mhm.
You really had to work as a team. Being even something like that, it's really important in terms of taking a leadership role and learning how to manage the project, learning how to direct, because you'll get people on the team that, and it's not unlike the real working in the private or government industry, is that there are people that are not going to pull their own weight, but you learn to work with those people to still deliver a project on time.
Oh yeah.
So it's so you'll deal with all types of people in life. So it's but yeah, in short, the water treatment plant was probably one of my most interesting projects. I didn't have appreciation for it at the time, but looking back,
It really helped you
you
a lot.
know,
Yeah, you learned a
yeah,
lot.
it was. I had a lot of fun.
Mhm.
So
Okay, that's good. Okay, well, we're nearing near the end of the interview. So, is there anything about your educational or career journey that you would have done differently?
yeah, again, it goes back to more public speaking and more technical writing. Writing professionally, ensuring the way you write is accurate, but also again, I can't emphasize enough how writing and speaking it will go a long ways in your career, whatever career that is, and civil engineering is no different. And because there are people that can speak well but they can't write well, and people that can write well but they can't speak well. But to really thrive, you need both. It's sad to say, but people will judge you based on your speaking and writing ability. Technical knowledge can help you to a certain extent, but your speaking and writing ability is really paramount in your career.
Okay, well, again, I am very appreciative of you for giving me this opportunity to get inside your career and your journey and what it took you to get to where you are today. A lot of students that want to be engineers, they typically don't know exactly what it's like to be an engineer and what it really takes. So based off of what I learned today, it really is really worth it. So you gotta be passionate for it, and it'll definitely take you a lot farther. Yeah. So.
Again, don't be discouraged by some of the boring aspects of being an entry-level engineer at some point in time in your life, but think of it as, again, a way for you to grow and develop yourself as a person. So all of those lessons in life will certainly go towards your civil engineering career and help you in your career. So best of luck, and let me know if you have any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, before we end this, do you have any last bits of advice that you can share with me? Any thoughts?
Again, I can't emphasize enough: public speaking, writing, and be bold. Don't let fear hold you back.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, man. Well, thank you very much. Like I said, I really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Talk to you later.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.